Somebody this week asked me, why would you sit in 40-degree water and sit there for 3 minutes and focus on breathing? What's the point? And today, I'm about to tell you. What's up, everybody? We're going to talk and focus today on how to become anti-fragile, how to focus on stress management techniques, how to build a bulletproof mindset, and how to kind of just change how you look at most things in life, right? And this whole path of most resistance that I like to preach to everybody. The whole conversation for me started with a new client that just signed up this week, and we were going through, the usual background stuff of exercise background, nutrition, stress. Stress was one of the things that was kind of top on her list that she wanted to work on from a stress management standpoint, obviously. Like, her average was like an 8 out of 10. And I was talking about kind of our 6 dimensions, as always, of, movement and exercise and nutrition are obviously great places to start. But if you tried and failed so many times over the past, like, we probably should be looking under the hood a little bit deeper. And let's look at sleep and let's look at stress management. And then, eventually maybe even working down towards community environment mindset. And ideally we like to work a little bit of everything, right? When we're talking about those things. So, and she asked me, and it's a great question, but it's also, there's so much to unpack from it. There's so much context, and it's also so different per person, right? She goes, well, what's your stress management techniques? And I'm like, that's a great question. I was like, I have a lot. I was like, I enjoy my hobbies. I enjoy alone time. I enjoy spending time with friends and family. There's certain techniques and tactics that I use, such as, meditation in the morning, such as cold immersion, sometimes writing or just getting things out of my head. So writing on a whiteboard, not necessarily journaling all the time or whatever it be. And, there's obviously different things, but then obviously it's the mindset. It's how you choose to look at everything that is stressful in your life, right? This is, the fact that we need to do things. You don't need to do everything, right? Turn your needs into wants. Turn your have-tos into get-tos, right? So a lot of that internal dialogue obviously is a big piece. And then looking at all the other factors around that, where most people have stress, which is going to be your environment, your community. So just to briefly touch on that, and then I'll kind of get more into kind of the tactics of some of the stuff that I, was talking about there. When you look at stress management kind of being dimension number 4, and environment and community being 5, and mindset being 6, and the last one in the foundational piece, we have to look at, the bottom 2, like you've heard me say in the past, is there's external things around us that could be causing stress, meaning your job is stressful, meaning you're having trouble with relationships with your partner or with your family or with your coworkers or with your friends or with your neighbors. These are external things that are, not easy to change, but they do have to change if this is something you feel like you keep running your head into the wall, because stress management requires you really optimizing those things. But then at the core of it, really foundationally, it's like the mindset is going to be the king of all, right? Like it has to be the thing that we always come back to on wanting to optimize and work and focus on building it, because building up that resiliency is really what's the thing that's going to allow you to weather a pandemic. There's a lot of stress now going on with the stuff in other countries and World War III now and this kind of talk, and, your work and relationships, that stuff is always going to be there, right? So if you can't weather it, it's because maybe mindset is going to be the thing that's kind of the weak point. So, you can have a really, really, really strong mindset and still be in a bad environment and community and somehow make it out okay. Not saying that's the way to live, like not saying mindset is going to be the only thing we should focus on, but it is kind of the foundation to every other thing that I talk about with health. So when I think about stress management techniques and I think about, the tactics and the tools and the systems that we all use, the one thing that really comes back for me, and I was trying to figure this out for the kind of the name of the email for this week, for the newsletter for this one, it was like, why we should be doing hard shit, or, the becoming anti-fragile, stress management techniques, or whatever it is. The one thing that I will tell you that's kind of a couple parallels in everything that I think about, like when I think about the stress management techniques and tactics that I am currently using, there's 2 things that really pop up for me. Number 1 is action, right? I think where our mind tends to run wild is when we kind of get into this place of boredom or insecurity or freedom of time. And when you give yourself too much to think, or too much time to think, your mind will run wild, right? And this is the one thing that I learned about meditation over the last couple of years, is like, no matter how hard you try to consciously focus on something, subconsciously, it's doing its own thing, right? And I think that's obviously the whole tool and the kind of the training behind meditation, is we're trying to be able to build up, the ability for subconscious and conscious self, and the 2 selves that we all have, to become a little bit more aligned and take more conscious control. But the action item behind it is going to be the big thing. If you're stressed out about the way you look, it requires you working out. It requires you dieting more, right? If you're stressed out about your job, it requires you taking action and speaking up to a boss or quitting your job or moving on to something that's more stable. You know, if you're stressed out about anything in life, you have to look at number one thing is the action is the thing that's going to solve that problem. If you're not willing to take action against a certain item, of course you're going to be stressed out. Of course you're easy to play the victim. Of course it's easy for you to always be in a hole and always be just in this place of fear and anxiety and depression and stress or whatever it might be, because you're never doing anything to dig it out, right? Like you're never trying to do anything to climb back out of this hole. You're just sitting there complaining and whining about it all the time. You know, and as always, I hope I'm not offending anybody, but I tend to be brash on how I look at these things because at the end of the day, the work really does solve the problem. I talk about this with my team all the time, right? Like when we think about our sales training, like one of the worst parts about sales training is not making the sale and getting a new member to be a part of the team or not making the commission on the front end. It's doing the boring work in the front end. It's making the calls. It's reaching out to people. It's the uncomfortable ask for the sale or for whatever it is, right? And it's the same thing in every single avenue of your life. There is going to be a point that is just boring or it's uncomfortable or it's hard or it's whatever it is. The action is really what's going to get you across that bridge and it's going to get you to the other side. And hopefully with action, with proper education, structure, accountability, and motivation leading after progress, you can start to build the momentum and action becomes easier to do, right? Action is not easy, right? And the reason why most of us procrastinate, and I'm going to speak for myself here because I am really the king of procrastination. I want to say I've gotten better in a lot of areas of life, but I try to really think about why have I gotten better in certain areas and why in certain areas am I still a procrastinator. I didn't realize this until we did the nutrition masterclass a few weeks ago that I was like, okay, I want to put some slides together for the clients. I wanted to make this a free thing and I wanted to make it just because it's free. I didn't want it to be this cheesy little bull crap information. I wanted to, still deliver as much as I could. And I told myself, let's get it done early. Let's just make sure that like you are prepared. You can go over a few rough drafts. You can make your corrections. And as usual, I waited till the last week to really start pumping it out because I got majority of it done, during that Christmas vacation, and then I just did nothing for it for 4 weeks, and then I just piled it all into 1 week as usual, right? So like for me, it's like, where does this procrastination come from? Because procrastination does for most people create stress, but it's also inverse relationship of itself. Like why are you stressed because you're procrastinating? Or are you stressed because you are? Blah, blah, blah. You have to look at it as like, that's a perfect example of not taking action, right? Like what would have solved my procrastination and my stress that was created from the procrastination would have been from me taking action, right? So when it comes to taking action, remember that yes, it is going to be very difficult. It is going to be boring. It's not going to be exciting necessarily all the time because you have to get over that first phase. It's like when people first get into the gym. It's like when people first start a diet. It's like when people want to go out and start dating again. It's like anything that's new in life, a new job. There's a point that's going to be very, very uncomfortable. And that point tends to be phase one. Getting over the soreness of the first 3 weeks of working out. It's not fun. Why the fuck did I just pay hundreds of dollars to be feeling like I'm literally walking around like a Frankenstein every day? Or why am I giving up good food and wine and alcohol to be on this quote unquote diet that's going to be healthy for me? Why am I doing this uncomfortable thing of going out in the world and asking people to go on a date with me? Like, that first phase is super, super uncomfortable. And you really have to get over that. And I think that really comes from just understanding that actionable steps can be very small. Like it doesn't need to be this big thing. Like, so in the beginning, it's like, hey, maybe it's one workout a week, right? Maybe it's, making sure that you're obviously progressing, not saying one workout a week forever and taking a year to get to 2 workouts a week, but like just getting the ball rolling and building momentum is really the big thing about that. So number one is definitely action for me. Number two, which is what I want to probably spend more time on today and kind of focus a little bit more on, is doing the hard things, right? And making sure that you're doing these things consciously with effort and dedicated, like you are making sure that you're purposely like building these things into the routine, right? Because if you can build hard things into the routine and the lifestyle, life becomes very easy. I tell people, if you do hard things, life feels easy. If you do easy things, life feels hard. Most of us choose short-term ease and comfort and suffer from long-term suffering and kind of in the long aspect of things, lifetime-wise. we tend to suffer later on in life. Versus doing the things that are hard in the acute moment that are more difficult and allowing life to be easier in the long term, right? So, and when you think about this, and this is why I think most of us are, like, I like to use this as kind of a financial example. A lot of people are not willing to invest and, have money compound very, very small percentages in the first, decade of time, but realizing that it's going to make you a crap ton of money in 50 years from now because long term is hard to see, right? And it makes sense, right? Like, and I still struggle with this 100% a lot with everything, is you have to be able to see the long game, and you have to be able to kind of prepare for tomorrow by doing what you do today. Right? But here's the cool thing about doing hard things is when we talk about mindset all the time, if you do easy things, your mind gets hardwired to thinking that, cool, the easiest path to resistance, the path of least resistance, right? This comfort that I seek, this complacency that you create for yourself is a habit. And just like any other habit in life, if you want to create a good or a bad one, repetition and momentum being built over time is going to allow us to really, quote unquote, build on this habit. So if you're someone that chooses the path of least resistance all the time, your body is building the habit of comfort, right? If you're a parent that just wants to throw an iPad at your kid because it's easier than going and playing with them outside, sure. As path of least resistance, that is solving the problem in the current state. Choosing to do the easy thing all the time is going to be a pain in the ass in a long time, right? So looking at every area of your life of why am I choosing X and how do I kind of flip this around to take action and do the hard stuff now and build a momentum in the mindset around the harder things and the path of most resistance. That's something that you need to be able to do with every little area of your life, right? Now, where this can be taken out of context is thinking that, like, well, I'm just supposed to make everything super difficult in life. Like, I'm going to walk to work every day instead of drive there, right? I'm going to do the hardest workouts. I'm going to, I'm never going to take a warm shower. I'm never going to do anything that makes me comfortable. That is not what I'm saying here. I'm saying, how do we build little things into the routine that start to build up this mental resiliency? Because when you build up resiliency, you become more anti-fragile. When you're used to doing hard things, or at least encountering them a little bit more often and more frequent, it's easier for you to deal with those things in the future. If you're not willing to take a little bit of suffering in the current state, you're definitely not going to be able to handle it tomorrow, right? And most of us choose the other route, right? This is why most people suffer from health problems. This is why most people have to live on medication from a very symptomatic focused medical system. This is why most people have trouble with their kids when they're obviously growing up into adults, because you gave them the easiest route as possible in their childhood. This is why most people choose convenience for food. This is why most people want to work at home. And this is all this stuff that you're doing to build comfort. Be prepared. Because if you do not change it, or you don't change the mindset of how you do these things, you will pay for it later, right? And I'm not saying, like I said, to not take this out of context, that all our life is supposed to be super, super difficult. Like, we just want to make sure that you're choosing to build in things that are harder, right? So I want to kind of go over some of the things that are really hard for me, so I can give you guys personal experience, and I could talk about the little challenge / homework that I threw in the email today, and obviously today for the podcast. For me, when I started meditation, there's basically three things, right? Meditation, working out, and cold immersion, right? Meditation for me, I told myself that I was going to do this for 90 days because just like anything else in life, I tell my clients the same thing. I would tell my family or friends the same thing. Like, don't do it for less than 90 days and come with me and pretend like you have an opinion. You don't, right? Do it for 90, then tell me. So I made it a thing. I was like, okay, I'm going to do meditation. I want to get in the habit of doing this because for me, I tend to be a very, most people might call it ADD or OCD or whatever the hell it is. I tend to just be I'm type A. I need to get stuff done. There's a lot going on in my head. I want to grow my business. I want to do this. And like, there's so much always going on. And meditation seemed to be the thing. Like, okay, like, can I create a little more self-awareness? Can I slow things down? Can I come back into this present moment? And presence for me is something that I've really preached really, really hardcore over the last 1.5 to 2 years, because I've realized the impact that it's made on me personally from a stress standpoint. Because when we live in the future or the past, you're not in the present, you're not happy. So meditation, I'm not joking, for the full 90 days, I thought was the stupidest thing in the world. I was like, this has no, like, benefit to me and my health, right? Like, I feel the same way. I waste 10 minutes every fucking morning waking there, sitting there, crisscross applesauce, and trying to focus on my breath. And then sometime into month 3 and 4, I started to feel this very, very slight, like, kind of effect from it, right? When I was at work and I felt there was something that kind of irritated me and I wanted to react, and I was able to just, like, kind of slow down and take a breath. And for the first time, I was able to do that. I usually don't. I'm very reactive. Still am. But I was able to kind of go, okay, take a breath. It's not a big deal, right? And focus on really what is aggravating me. And so I realized, like, oh my God, there's actually some level of awareness around what I was kind of reactive to, and the importance of that breath, and the importance of taking a second to actually think about before you say it. And that's where the true power really showed itself. And still to this day, I'm not doing meditation 7 days a week, right? As much as I say I am, obviously sometimes I'm on vacation, sometimes I wake up and I'm not doing it. I try to at least make sure I'm doing at least 4 times a week, and I'm probably still being consistent with that for sure. And it's hard, right? But the fact that I know it's hard means I know it's good for me, right? The fact that I know that, hold on, why is this challenging me so much? Why is 10 minutes out of your day, out of your 24 hours that you have, such a challenge for you? And the reason why is because I feel like I need to do more. Because I feel like I should be more efficient with my time. Because I feel like I should be doing more things. I know in return that that's the reason why meditation is so powerful for me, because the more I practice it, the more I take the time, the 10 minutes to slow down, the more I can create the awareness, the more I can practice becoming present, but hopefully over time, that thought process, that personality trait that I've created over the last 30 years, it starts to dwindle down. And that's the goal for me, right? And it's taken 2 years to get better at it, and I'm nowhere near where I want to be. But that's the cool thing about the art of the process, is I'm hooked on the process. I don't really care about the results so much right now, right? I want to stay focused on the process and just making sure I'm progressing, obviously. But that's number one, right? So the number two thing for me, and this should have been number one, but is working out, right? Working out for me is always going to be the thing that is hard to do, that is actionable items. It addresses health better than most things in life, because working out gets the domino and the snowball rolling. And you start to create better nutritional habits, you sleep better, you manage stress better, you build mindset in the gym, you create a community around you of people that are like-minded and healthy. Like everything that I think exercise provides, and this is why I got in the business of owning a gym, is because I think it's such a powerful tool for people, right? There's no better tool in the world than working out. It literally, it carries over to every area of your life. And when we talk about today for becoming anti-fragile, for becoming more mentally resilient, building a bulletproof mindset, working out does that better than anything really in the world for me, right? And I've done it for so long, and I've seen the benefits of it. Obviously, there's all the other benefits around it, but the mental stuff of learning how to be able to push myself when I'm tired, to be able to go one more rep when I think I'm done, to be able to really work out the days I'm really tired and I want to skip the gym, getting that mentality built around the gym, and turning it into a passion, to something I actually look forward to most days, not all days, is something that's carried over to every area of my life, because I know when I can push myself harder in the gym, I can be better at home, right? I can be a better boyfriend, I can be a better son, I can be a better employer, I can be a better, everything, right? Because I'm practicing these things in other areas of my life, so when they show up in other areas of my life, I feel more prepared, right? And exercise is probably one of the most powerful tools for doing that. I personally think that kind of conditioning format workouts or aerobic training probably do that a little bit more for me on the mental side of it, which is kind of why I like to blend some type of aerobic training into my strength training as well. Not saying strength training definitely doesn't do it, because it requires you doing that same exact skill set and mindset to getting stronger and building and progressively overloading week by week, or, cycle by cycle. But I think the conditioning aspect, like when I'm on a run and I'm just getting going, the first mile, just getting my legs warm, my breath controlled, and mile 2, then, you get into that kind of whatever it is every person's different. Some people already laugh at me, but when I get into 3 miles into my run, I'm like, all right, feel pretty good. I definitely can convince myself to walk if I wanted to right now. But that little voice pops up in the gym more than any other place. Well, besides the next one I'm about to show you. And that voice is what we're talking about working on, right? When you think about building mental resiliency and you think about that voice that we're trying to fight, meditation, the voice, no, skip it today. You don't need it. It's just breathing. It's a waste of 10 minutes. No, we need to do it, right? These are the conversations. I'm on a run. All right, you should walk. Your legs are pretty heavy right now. No, we're going to keep going. And finding the balance between these two voices and being able to stack those little wins and being able to outweigh and out-convince and out-argue the other person that's in your head convincing you to do the opposite thing. These are the tools that start to build momentum, right? These are the things that start to build the better habits that we're trying to chase. So like I said, exercise for me from a conditioning aerobic standpoint, I think would probably be a little bit more beneficial for that aspect. But definitely not convincing people to only be aerobic. And the last one, which for me, I'm going to tell you right now, the reason why I saved this for the last and the reason why it's the most powerful thing is freaking cold water. It is literally one of the things, it's kind of like meditation when I first started. I was like, there's no way this is going to be something. Like, I started, like, what convinced me to do it originally, to actually get a cold plunge at my house, right? I bought a sauna and I wanted the cold plunge. Is obviously just doing the amount of research that I do all the time. I was like, okay, there actually is a lot of health benefits here. Metabolically, longevity-wise, like, inflammation, recovery, even all these things. I don't need to get into any of the nuances of that. But for me, what I realized is like a lot of it was just the mindset was really one of the most powerful things, right? And literally every single time I do it, it's not like, wow, I'm craving it today. The gym, I crave 80% of the time, right? Meditation, I crave 50% of the time, right? I wouldn't even say crave, like would be a bad way to say it. The cold plunge, I feel excited about it when I'm like 30 minutes into a sauna. Yeah, fucking hot and sweating. It's 140 degrees in here. Let's go for it. As soon as I open the door to the sauna, I'm like, never mind. But as soon as I step into the cold water, right, and I tend to keep my cold plunge around 40 degrees or mid 40s sometimes even high 30s, and it's just depending on the weather outside, obviously. When I get in there, that voice pops up immediately, right? As soon as my breath starts to get a little bit, I'm like, okay. I'm trying to get my heart rate back down, trying to get my breath rate back down, and I kind of settle in about 20 and 30 seconds into it, and then as soon as it is, I'm kind of in a place where most of the time I'm like, you should get out. It's fucking cold. You should get out. And then I'm like, no, 10 more seconds. Focus on my breath. And I really try to connect, because the one thing about meditation that I think is not as effective as the cold plunge is I'm doing the same breath work that I'm doing during meditation, or the same thing that I'm doing during stretching, which is actually something I could probably talk about in a second. But I'm having a stimulus that's convincing me to do otherwise, right? So meditation, there's not really, I'm sitting in front of a red light and kind of feel comfortable, and it's the morning and I'm half asleep because I just woke up. Cold plunge, I'm fighting, trying not to shiver and freeze my ass off, and also still somehow bring myself back down to this kind of controlled state. That's why I think cold water is the most powerful tool in the world when it comes to managing stress, building mental resiliency, becoming anti-fragile, building a mindset that's bulletproof. Is because if you can do something that's hard and somehow manage to control your breath, like when I'm there and my body's like wanting to start shivering and I'm like 3, 4, 5 seconds in, 3, 4, 5 seconds out, and I start to control that breath, what's happening is I'm building a habit of saying, there is something stressful going on right now, outside. It's external. But your internal manages to control itself and manages to come back to a breath and manages to come to a place where you can actually take advantage and grab that thing by the reins. That, for me, is fucking amazing, right? There is no cooler thing in the world than that, because once I show up to other stressful external events in the world, I have the ability, because I practiced, coming back to my breath, coming back to a relaxed state, coming back to a place of control. And like I said, I don't want, maybe a separate podcast one day will be hot cold therapy and why I love it so much. When I get out of that thing, I'm not joking, like, it feels better than any alcoholic drink or drugs ever made me feel in the world. Like, it feels like you just click the reset button on the human body. Like, I feel amazing. And then also, I feel like I just collected a huge win for me, because I did something that was super challenging, and even though it was 3 minutes, I managed to be able to control my breath and get out of it and do it. Now, is there times where I quit early on the workout? Is there times where I quit early on the meditation? Is there times that I get out early before my clock is over, my timer's done? Yes. It's slim to none. I try to really outweigh that. It does happen. That's okay. Don't look at those as losses. Just look at that as like, today, the external stressor beat you, and you didn't. That's okay. We don't win every day. As much as we try to, we don't win it every day. So building these wins is like building any other habit in life, right? So if you want to become anti-fragile, you want to become someone that can manage stress and be able to take a lot of stress on and build a capacity. Remember, stress is not avoiding it. It's how much of a capacity can we build to still manage what's going on around us. The reason why the best, most successful people in all areas of life, athletes, workers, relationships, whatever it might be, they don't have the ability to not be stressed. They have the ability to be able to handle it at a higher capacity. So if you want all these skill sets, learn to do 2 things. Number 1, take action. Just move. Just do something. Because if you don't take action and move forward on it, I'm going to promise you right now, you will continually drown in your sorrows, right? And I will not feel bad for you. The reason why is because you're not doing anything, right? You can't complain about the results you don't have from the work you have not been doing. Simple as that. If you're on my team, you've heard me say this a million times. If you're a client of mine, you've heard me say this a million times. You cannot complain about the results you do not have from the work you have not done. Number one, take action, step one. Number two, do hard things more often. Choose the path of most resistance. Ride a bike instead of an electric bike. Walk to work instead of driving everywhere, right? Take the stairs instead of the escalator. Take a cold shower. Do things that are hard, right? Stretching was something I kind of wanted to throw into that workout part. Is like most people skip mobility because it's boring and it's hard, right? Or it's not comfortable. It's like, what the fuck am I doing this for? That's a perfect example of why you should be doing it. Anything that you see with that subconscious brain turns on and says, yeah, we should skip this. Your conscious brain should be like, there's a reason why I'm saying this. Let's go for it. Run into the fire. Two different types of people in this world. Lucky you'll love this. People run into the fire or people that run away from the fire, right? If you want to learn how to run into the fire, be able to not get fire burn, you got to do those things, right? You got to build tolerance. You got to build capacity. So that's kind of what I want to leave you on. So the little challenge and homework that I threw in the email for you guys was, cold shower. Obviously, most people don't have a cold plunge. If you do, hats off to you. Let me know. But taking showers, I love to take warm and hot showers. Hot showers, probably more importantly. I take a hot shower, and then what I do is I finish on a minute of cold. You get more health benefits, and that could be a separate podcast from finishing on the cold. But for just this mental resilience and kind of mental thing that we're working on for today, start with 10 seconds, right? Just do something to get uncomfortable and try to control your breath there. And even if you do it for 10 seconds, I'm just going to do one deep breath. 5 seconds in and 5 seconds out, right? That's one breath. Cool. And then next week or next time, do it for 2 breaths and then 3 breaths and then just do it for a minute, right? Like you're going to get so much benefit from it, but I'm telling you, when you want to build this thing that we're talking about today, start to do more hard stuff. Okay? All right, guys, I hope you guys take away something as always. As always as well, just a little quick reminder to help me kind of grow this thing so we can get it out to more people. Leave a review, share it with somebody, subscribe to the channel. I'm trying to do these weekly. I'm trying to keep it focused on health and mindset and wellness and anything holistically that I can think that surrounds that. And as always, have a great weekend. Talk to you soon.